Say it.
It's 4 o'clock on Tuesday.
And you know what that means.
You know what that means.
It's time for another exciting episode.
It's time for another exciting episode of
Taxi TV.
Taxi TV.
And push the button. Yeah. Good job. All right. And thank you, fake. Whoops. Whoa. No band playing while we're on the air. Okay. So, do you want to go hang out with your mom and grandma?
You mean Santa?
Yeah, you want to go? All right, wave goodbye. See you later. Okay, thank you for helping me with the intro. Now, can you do me a favor and come up with some topics for the rest of the show?
No.
Okay. There we go. Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, our granddaughter is visiting. Hello, folks in the chat room. Thought she was going to learn logic online. Trust me, she could learn it faster than I will. Let's see who we got here. We got John Pearson, Robert Velacourse, Andre Stepanian, Jesse J. Peck, Darren Moss, Keith LeBrant, Martin Gravel, Bob Gunnerfeld, Il Rosso Emil, Jesse J. Peck, I said already. Paul House, Tony Salazzo. Yeah, she already said it's 4 o'clock on a Tuesday. She's normally like a super duper ham, but she wants to go outside and play with her bubbles. So, Ian Shortle, Nancy Collell, Peter Rahill. Anyway, hello. That's something I want to tell you guys. I gotta look in my book to see. What did I want to tell you? Oh, we're not going to do an episode of regular Taxi TV on Monday, July 29th. And we will not be doing an episode of the Quarantini Happy Hour on Friday, June 26th. Because we're taking that day off. Am I right? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting this totally wrong. Sorry. We're taking off Friday, July 23rd from the office for July 4th weekend. We are moving back to the office on June 29th, which is a Monday. So I'm not going to do a Taxi TV that day because we're all going to be getting settled back in. I will continue to do some Quarantini happy hours once we're back in the office because I know a lot of you guys are still stuck at home. UK lockdown nearly done, Paul House says. 4th of July social distances, but we can meet families and other households. Yay! I said July. Hold on, I'm confused. What did I say? We're moving back into the office on June 29th. But we're taking off from the show Monday, June 29th, no regular Taxi TV. And then Friday, July 3rd, we're going to be out of the office for the holiday weekend. But what I really wanted to tell you is that I have a music supervisor he also specializes in licensing vintage music, but also music supervises indie films. And he's going to join us on Monday, July 6th. And then Ariana's going, gee, I wish you'd tell me this stuff. I've been busy this morning. And we will be joined by none other than Robin Frederick on a split-screen remote Monday, July 13th. So there you are. Moving back to the office is great. I don't know. I'm going to miss the Gophers. I'm going to miss my daily visits from the squirrels. Let's see. What else am I going to miss? I'm gonna miss watching my tomatoes grow, which is like watching paint dry. Um, yeah, Tony Salato said I had to laugh when I saw a vintage listing for the 2000s. It's true, and now that people have figured out uh, that Taxi is the main supplier of vintage music to the leading vintage music company, all not all the but several other libraries are also hitting us up for vintage stuff as well. Peter Rahill, once you said July 15th is the cutoff for the road rally decision. Still? Yes, I may push it to August 1st. I literally just got off like an hour-long phone call about an hour ago. And we're just, I mean, we literally can't make a move on the decision until we get some sort of decision from the mayor and the governor. Robbie Hancock says, watching paint dry ain't so bad. Robbie, get a life, brother. Oh, man, oh, man. Also, I was watching back the first few minutes of yesterday's show, and I saw a gentleman named Mike Elizondo in the chat room. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but Mike Elizondo is a huge producer. I believe he's also an incredibly good bass player, but he's done like Dr. Dre, 50 Cent, I mean, just tons of records. And he's actually been on a panel at the Road Rally. He's also a huge hit songwriter. And can the mayor be bought? Can't they all? Anyway, I saw his name in the chat room. I'm not 100% sure it was the same Mike Elizondo, but I know he lives very close to me because I've run into him at the gas station. After he was on the panel at the Road Rally, we've bumped into each other at the gas station, I think twice, or maybe once at the car wash, which is part of the gas station. Anyway, if it is in fact him, I think I'm going to invite him to join us for an episode of Taxi TV. Let's see. Yesterday's show was great. I got an email from from Barden about, I don't know, half an hour ago, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I just watched yesterday's show. My head was huge. Did you have me zoomed or something?" I said, "Nope. Same settings as the time before." Why are we talking about paint fumes? Oh, watching paint dry. Got it. All right. The element. I need a mentor. Well, the Road Rally has mentors. Or is that, did you have a typo? You were trying to say you need a mento. I saw somebody on my staff sent me a video of somebody getting rid of moles or gophers or something. And they actually took some Mentos and dropped them into a Diet Coke bottle, shook it up, and then shoved the spout of the Diet Coke bottle into the gopher hole. And you see the gophers come just like phew, flying out the other holes. Is pretty damn funny. All right, well, that's it for me. Have a great day. We're 8 minutes into the episode, and I got nothing today. What do you guys want to talk about? I thought I heard water running. I looked out the window and I see my granddaughter in the backyard. And she's standing on this thing. It's like a big plastic flat thing with water, squirting up like a fountain out of it. But she's running around naked in the backyard. Kid never has clothes on. Robbie Hancock needs help with marketing. I think you should do a full episode on it, Michael. All right. What do you want to know about marketing? I need to know more. Are you trying to market yourself? Yeah, I will get back to marketing. The industry is just starting to go back to work. Congratulations, John Pearson posted a story on the forum. Got some help from a bunch of taxi members. Got a song that got signed today. Yay! What year did I start the forums? I want to say 2004. Classical listings I dispatch from time to time, yes. Robbie, I need to know what it is that you're marketing. Are you talking marketing live shows, marketing your YouTube stuff, marketing your music? Who is your audience? Uh, Even to recommend books, I need to know that stuff. Popular songs out there from Taxi. Oh man, I wish I should keep this list on my desktop because my brain is mush. Um, Buy Me a Rose, Kenny Rogers. Um, ah, we had one other big country hit that was number one. I Loved Her First, which was a country hit. Those are really hard to get. Um, the band Crossfade was a Taxi thing. They had a number one single and a platinum album, but I can't remember the name of the song. I think the album is just called Crossfade. A whole bunch of Disney stuff. Jesse McCartney, Beautiful Soul. Okay, back to marketing. Let's see. Well, marketing myself as a composer, promoting my studio for a start, attracting new clients. I know you have a lot of experience. I do actually, but at the time I had the studio in Fort Lauderdale, there weren't a gazillion other studios. And frankly, we didn't market much to the local market as much as we marketed to, the big acts that were like signed to major labels. And the marketing stuff, because I knew nothing about marketing back then, zilch. We ran ads in Billboard and other industry publications like that. And on occasion, we would send out direct mail pieces to A&R coordinators at the major labels because they oftentimes booked the studios. I think you should start a campaign that says something like pedophile-free recording studio. That would go viral very quickly, and everybody would know that it would be safe to bring their 13-year-old kids there that want to be in the industry. Here, have a hairbrush. Go sing in the mirror. Actually, that is no laughing matter now that I think about it, because I can think of somebody that we know through Taxi that was getting into a lot of trouble, helping young ladies become starlets on records, and we had to disassociate from him because he was being less than kosher with the young ladies. But he got help. What did you miss? I don't know, Edmund. When are we going to check in with Matt Hurt again? You know what? Hey, Ariana, can you make a note that we should do a remote with Matt Hurt? He can be our first guest from Switzerland. That would be awesome. What's the deal with vintage listings? I mean, make them sound of that era, have to be from that era. They come in both varieties, and we will actually say in the listing even the guys who will accept stuff that sounds like it's from an era, they still would prefer stuff that's actually from the era. And I think I've spoken about this in the show before, but I will repeat myself because I'm prone to do that anyway. They want authentic. They're not looking for hits. They are looking for stuff that was recorded back in the day. It could be the 90s, the 80s, 70s, blah, blah, blah. Because it just has a vibe that the recordings do sound differently. The way songs were written then is different. Years ago, probably 4 years ago now, I had the CEO of my favorite company that does vintage music on stage with me at the Road Rally. And we played some incredibly good retro stuff that, like modern but made to sound retro, both in the way it was written, the way it was played, and the way it was produced and recorded. The stuff sounded just amazing. And he instantly knew the difference between the real deal and the stuff that was recent but made to sound old. And it was pretty apparent. When I first played the stuff that was recent but made to sound old, everybody in the room, like in the ballroom, was like, yeah, that's vintage. And then when we played the other stuff, the real vintage stuff, everybody went, oh, the difference is obvious. And it was. Classical, Martin Gravel says, classical listings live in dispatch, but not in the regular section, right? Not necessarily. The guys in the A&R department do tend to put mostly everything in dispatch is instrumental, just because that's what the people who sign up for dispatch seem to like. But I think we've had classical listings that have run in the regular listings. It's not like we have a hard, fast rule about that. Alex Dillon, hello. Better late than never. For taxi listings from recording artists looking for hits, does that mean everything that gets forwarded is considered a potential hit? Have you heard anything undeniable coming in from members? Whoa, might have to go grab another drink. I will definitely have to grab another drink. I knew my prep for today's show was being messed up. I have my granddaughter on my lap. Yeah, you know what? Here's the rule of thumb. Nobody's ever looking for B-sides. I think once in our 28-year history, we actually had a company that said, can you guys find us some B-sides? Alex Dillon, thanks for making me feel wanted. Getting Max Martin, there you go. We should get Max on the show. Robbie Hancock still talking marketing. Think for most part of marketing towards singer-songwriters and just songwriters and producing songs for them. Okay, so you have to figure out what's... Let me grab a drink. Sorry, I'll be right back. You know what I like about you guys? You can entertain yourselves. Let's see. Should I drink Rockstar? Why, yes, I think I should. Woo. By the way, recommendation. Tummy drops. Excuse me. Apparently I need some. These things are really strong ginger hard candies that this bag is peach. The other on Sunday I had straight up just ginger ones. My 30-something daughter turned me on to them. They're really good. They're ridiculously expensive. They're like $10 for a bag of, I don't even know how many are in here. It doesn't say. Oh, 33 lozenges for $10. But they're so good, you will feel like it's worth it. Anyway, okay, back to Robbie's studio. If I had a studio and I was going after, first of all, you know they're local. So, I know this is going to sound old school, and maybe the stores aren't open yet, but I would do one sheets that could go on the bulletin boards in the local music stores. I would do one sheets out to people that teach piano and guitar lessons, and let them know that you will give them a commission if they refer people to you. Let's see, what else would I do? If there's a local music rag, that's a great place to advertise. If there are any local Facebook groups, that's another great place. There are actually a lot of people, we generally dissuade them from joining Taxi, and I love to affectionately call them hairbrush singers, but you know, they're like, I don't know, 12 to 16-year-old females, generally speaking, and they just love female pop music, you know, and they stand in front of their mirror with a hairbrush singing along with Ariana Grande. So that's a potential market because moms and dads are like, oh, my kid is so talented, I should take her into the studio. And they need somebody, you know, you have to explain to them, look, doing covers, not that great unless you're doing covers, you know, sitting on a stool playing acoustic guitar for YouTube. But going into like a legit studio situation and doing covers, what are they going to really do with that? And you'll probably need to explain to the parents that your daughter could have the greatest voice in the world, but there is absolutely no shortage of great singers out there in the world. Great singers don't really mean anything to record labels unless they are accompanied by great songs, and several of them. That's what gets their attention. Um, all right. Other subjects. The energy drink stuff will give you a heart attack. Well, there was that day about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, 3 days before the road rally, this really big author of marketing books was in town. And out of the clear blue, I didn't even know this gentleman, but he had heard that I was a fan, and he called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Santa Monica at Shutter's Hotel. Why don't you come down and have brunch with me?" So it was like, I don't know, 3, 4 days before the road rally. I was very stressed out, and I was drinking Hanson's energy drinks in the smaller cans, like the little Red Bull can size. But I was drinking like 4 of those things a day. And I remember calling my wife from the car. I was on the 405 heading back to the office, and I called Deb and I said, "My neck feels really thick. I'm sweating. My heart is racing. I'm just going to stay on the phone with you, and I'll tell you every time I pass an exit so you know where I'm at, but I'm driving myself to the hospital." So I drove myself to the hospital. I parked my car. I walked into the ER, and they said, "What's your problem?" And I described my symptoms, and no less than like 10 seconds later, the doors swung open. The gurney came out. They threw me on the gurney. They took me back. They literally ripped my shirt off of me, put all kinds of little things on me, took my temperature, took my blood, blah, 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 blah. And then the doctor came in and started going down the list. "Have you had any energy drinks today?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "How many?" And I said, "3." And he goes, and he starts ripping off the sensors. He goes, "All right, get him out of here. Another energy drink guy." I don't drink very many of them, just to let you know. I really don't. Yeah, like, I'll drink half a can, maybe. Frankly, I wish they made them without all the stuff in them, because I actually like the taste of these. Um, Paul House, "My studio's in a commercial site, not a home studio. I don't advertise where it is for commercial reasons." Very good idea, Paul. But obviously, if someone's going to use it, I let them know. Am I being too cautious? No, not at all. Right around the time, actually, right before I got my job at Criteria in 74, 75, whatever year that was, a friend of mine inherited some money when his aunt passed away, and he bought a bunch of gear, and he rented a warehouse in like North Miami, and my granddaughter's trying to come in. We can't have any naked kids running around on the show. Anyway, threw me off my game. Oh, so we were working in this warehouse, practicing every night and jamming. And one night, these less than desirable but super friendly guys came by, and they were hanging out with us, and they started jamming a little bit with us. And the next night we went to rehearse, and oh, look at that. The lock that looked like the strongest lock you've ever seen was actually ripped off of the thing. The roll-up door went up, and we walked in, and there was nothing left. I mean, 100% of everything was gone. Michael's going to get streaked. I hope not. No naked children on this show. Consuming too many energy drinks can definitely be dangerous. That's true. All right. Was it my favorite shirt? I don't remember. I just remember they cut the T-shirt off. Why they didn't ask me to take it off, I don't know. Maybe they thought I was going to drop dead right then and there. But yeah, it was scary. So ever since then, I just won't have more than one of these things a day. And usually if I have one, I drag it out over a period of time. Remove refined sugar from my diet. And corn syrup as well. That's how you stay so skinny, Cass. Yeah, I don't drink that much coffee either. But enough about me. What about you? Am I a Kiss fan? The band, not the smooch. Yeah, I like Kiss. I never loved them. I was a little old for them by the time they came out. But the guy who discovered them, I believe, and produced their first record or two, a guy named Kenny Kerner, was actually a taxi screener for probably 10 years. And sadly, he passed away a while ago. They found him sitting at home in his easy chair with his dog on his lap, just gone. But Kenny Kerner was great. He was, man, he could scare you and make you feel like the most loved person in the world all at the same time. He used to teach at Musicians Institute, and he did not take kindly to kids falling asleep in class. Kiss was your gateway to rock and roll and guitar. Well, there you go. Songwriters, producer, closer to the action is better? Yes. I don't really understand that question, Robert. What's the hot new show in production for 2020? Any ideas? I don't have any ideas, but go to Variety online. Go to IMDb, but Variety is probably a better resource to find out about new shows. I don't think Kenny drank energy drinks. I don't think Kenny drank at all. What's the chance of getting Rob Shirelli to mix one of my songs? I don't want to speak for him. I'm sure there's a price tag that goes along with that. I just know that he's been phenomenally busy. He had a lull some years ago where, like, for a couple of years, he wasn't that busy. But yeah, I'd say, man, for the last 2, 3, 4 years, he's just constantly working. I mean, sometimes we talk, it's like midnight. He's still in his studio, and I'm still sitting here at my computer. He barely has a life. Could you tell us how people collaborate through the forums? How does it work with submissions? Also, actually swapping tracks in the mix. Yeah, it's really not that hard. I will tell you that, and this is just what I've been told by members, so I'm really just, it's not that I've got any personal experience with it, but members tend to meet other members in chat rooms like this, or in the forum, in Collaboration Corner, or anywhere, and you do this kind of music, so do I. You play, you play guitar, I'm big on keyboards, you're a great top liner, I'm a great producer. You find out about each other, and then you hit one another up, and you give it a whirl. But I do know from everything that I've learned from our members is that you want to pick people that aren't flaky, because sooner than later, you're going to have a deadline to meet. And if you pick somebody who's responsible, they're going to be pushing to make the deadline as much as you are. If you pick somebody that is flaky and a little bit, lax on deadlines, things like that, they could blow a deadline for you, and that would be heartbreaking. So, first of all, they have to appear, normal and responsible. Second of all, complementary to skills that you don't have, preferably in genres that you want to work in. I know some people that do it by Skype or by Zoom, where they will sit there and play each other little sketches or little ideas they have, and when they, much like a regular writing meeting that you would have in LA, New York, Nashville, wherever, and when something sparks up a little excitement in the other person, I like that one, let's do it. Then you sit down and decide who's going to do what, and obviously somebody's got to start. Let's say that the other person is the top liner. So you may want to start building a track, or you may say, I've already got a track. Well, then you send them a track. You could send them, a Pro Tools session. You could just send them a digital file that they could bounce into Pro Tools. Then they do their thing, and they send you back probably like a stem of whatever it is that they've done. Let's say that they've done, top line to vocal. So they would send you back just a track, but it would have to have the count off on it so that you could, fly it back into your track in your Pro Tools or Logic session. So that's really about it. It's just a back and forth. Frankly, all the guys in the chat room that do this could probably give you more insight than I just have, but that's kind of a synopsis from what I've learned. Top liner is a melody and lyric writer, generally speaking. There are different people who have slightly different definitions of a top liner, but lyric and melody. Peter, what is a PM? A PM is a private message, or it means the afternoon or the evening. Is the recording magazine that I see in my emails from Taxi free to Taxi members? Yes, it is. We actually do pay so that every Taxi member gets a recording magazine every month. Oh, Peter Rahill brings up a good point. Having a file swapping mechanism like Dropbox or WeTransfer is very important to collabs working. Yeah, because the files are too big to attach to an email. Oh, I must have said something funny. I don't know what it is, John. Has CDBaby changed since founder Derek Sivers sold it? Yes. I'm not an expert on them anymore. I actually used to be pretty good friends with Derek when he still lived. For a while, he actually lived here in Southern California, but I think he started out in Portland. And he's been on panels at the Road Rally. We love to talk marketing all the time. We would go out to dinner 2 or 3 times a year, and then he sold the company. It was I was in a weird position because Derek was a friend at the time, and so was Tony Van Veen, who was one of the potential buyers on behalf of CDBaby / disc makers. And so they would both confide in me about what was going on as much as they could, but it was pretty secretive stuff. And I really had to keep a lid on it. I couldn't talk to you, hey, Tony told me this or Derek told me that. Couldn't do any of that. And couldn't talk to anybody in the outside world. But yeah, I kind of knew what was going on there before it went on. Yeah, Joseph Alonso was giving great advice here about collaboration. Post it on the forum, then have an intro meeting via Skype and see if you like each other or click, but ask for samples of their work and provide yours. Yep. Yeah, and frankly, you can do a little bit of stalking before you go on a first date, and try and grab a little kiss at the door when you say goodnight, figuratively speaking, of course. Go listen to their stuff. Very oftentimes people will post links to stuff they're working on, put stuff in peer-to-peer, maybe links of stuff that they've had forwarded in the forward section of the forum. So, yeah, you can check them out and get a feel, is this somebody I want to work with? Now, be aware that if it's somebody who's at a very high level and already, earning a nice amount of money and getting a lot of placements, they would be somewhat hesitant to spend too much time working with newbies, although I can't say that that's, an across the board, never going to happen kind of thing. It's just they would more than likely invest their time working in ongoing productive relationships they have with other collaborators. But, just stay with them. Ask them if they say, no, I'm not too busy right now. Don't take that as some sort of defeat. Take it as okay, they're too busy right now, and take out your calendar or put it on your phone, a reminder, check back in with them in like 60 days. I think that would be a reasonable amount of time. Joseph Alonso says, discuss your co-write agreement. I completely agree with that. Any advice on setting up websites? I'm going to recommend Bandzoogle, and yes, they are a strong supporter of the Taxi Road Rally, but I've gotten to know them over the years because they're sponsors of the Road Rally, and I've got to say, when I look at our members' websites, I would say probably 75% of them are done on Bandzoogle. And frankly, they look so good that it's not until I see Bandzoogle down at the very, very bottom that I know that they did it on Bandzoogle. So I recommend them. Mark Reel, is that question for me? What would you tell your just starting out self, knowing all you know now? Are you going to get Logic? If that was for me, yes. I keep swearing I'm going to get Logic. Unfortunately, Taxi keeps me so busy. And now that my wife is home, I'm not working until like midnight every night. But we'll eat dinner and sit down and watch the news, probably while we're eating dinner, and then maybe watch a show together. Like an hour-long drama, and then she falls asleep on the couch, and I come back over here, jump on my computer, usually at like 9 or 10, and work for another hour or two, but not as much as I was working when she wasn't in town. All that to say that I am really, really dying to get Logic and start using it. I just don't want you guys to suffer. I don't want Taxi to suffer because I've discovered this awesome new thing, and I know myself. When I get into something, especially if it has anything to do with studios, you won't see me for a very long time. Excuses, excuses. That's right. I tell all of you guys, no excuses allowed. And then what do? I come out with an excuse on my own. I do love the taste of that stuff. It tastes like medicine in a good way. Ken Mesford says, Logic's easy to learn. Andre says he'll help me with Logic. Any questions? I can engineer a song for you, Robbie. Okay. Oh, wow. I didn't know that Host Baby made everybody go to Bandzoogle. So they must have, rather than Host Baby, which is part of CDBaby, I didn't know that happened. Rather than them, bearing the weight of all the customer service stuff, they probably just said, hey, how about if we refer people to you and make a commission? Smart. Michael, you should learn Logic, put some tracks together, send it Taxi incognito and see what happens and film it. I can't submit anything through Taxi. That's, could you imagine what people out there in the world would say? Hey, I heard Michael's submitting music through his own company. Bet you that gets a forward. Have I thought of producing a demo for There's a Virus? No, I have not. I don't know that I would be any good now. Cass just said he feels sorry for the screener that would reject my mix. I've got ears that are tuned to, like 1975 through 1988. Those are the years that I was active. I mean, most of the stuff happened 75 through like 82. And then once I moved to New York, only on occasion did I work on a record, and that was if somebody just pestered the crap out of me until sometimes I would just name ridiculous prices just to make them go away, and they would pay them. And you can't say no. Once you set a price, I would like triple my hourly rate, and people would go, okay. So then I got stuck, and I was doing audio post at a very high level by day, from like 9 to 6. And I would start records at like 6:30, 7 o'clock and go until 4 o'clock in the morning. Man, that's a lot of hours. And sit there and try and have a good attitude and not fall asleep at the console. I do really want to go badly. There's a studio in North Hollywood called Sphere Recording. Um, who was the lady? I can't think of her name now. Four Non Blondes. Not Christina Perry. Something Perry. Can't think of her name. Anyway, she had a studio in North Hollywood. Then a gentleman, I want to say from France or the UK, bought it from her and moved all of his gear over. And Shirelli rented the studio for a weekend. He was doing a showcase and needed a really nice studio with a pretty big room. Christina Perry, okay. Linda Perry, that's what I was thinking. There is a Christina Perry, but I was thinking Linda Perry. Anyway, the studio is now called Sphere. Check it out online and just look at that place. Man, oh man, it's got a vintage Neve and great working order. It's got pretty much every piece of outboard you could imagine, every microphone you could imagine, every drum kit you could imagine, every guitar amp you could imagine. I mean, literally, it is, it's Valhalla for people like me. I just want to go there sometime and, like call up Skunk Baxter and some other players, and I'll just pay for the studio time and just go there and do like 2 songs in a weekend with a great band, almost all live. I would love to, have a band of great players in that room because it's a great sounding room. It's one of those rooms you walk in, you clap your hands and go, wow, wonder how my kitchen sounds. Pretty. Anyway, how about a Melanie sequel? I think if she still does stuff, but I think she does it with her son Bo now. Rick Cabot Podmore. When I track in LA, it's Westlake for me. I love Westlake. I've actually become really good friends with the owners of Westlake. I love those rooms. They sound great. They're old style, like the rooms I used to work in, but I know how to make rooms like that work. You don't think there's an indie audience for something that sounds like 1975? Yeah, there might be. I don't know. If I get Skunk Baxter there, please let me come and watch. I'll pay. There you go. I should do like a Melanie type thing with a live band at that studio and charge, like $100 a head to come in so you can sit on the floor, smoke weed, drink wine, and just hang out while they play. There you go. That's my new business right there. Ken Bearden, finding your favorite pair of socks from 30 years ago. They smell, but boy, are they comfortable. I've got to say, Ken, I've done a lot of things in my life, but I've never held on to a pair of socks for 30 years. I do have a rain slicker, like a rainproof windbreaker that is 38 years old. I think that's my oldest article of clothing. You should stream it as a Taxi TV special. No, man. If as much as I'd love to share it with you guys, if I go into a room like that, it's just like I go into a zone. When I'm sitting at a console, yeah, don't talk to me. I had a very strict rule about no roadies being in my control room, especially when I was mixing. I was not very popular with roadies. If I'm ever in Australia, check out Black Pearl Studios. Awesome place in Melbourne. It's funny. Everybody I talk to from Australia is from Melbourne. It's like I never meet anybody from Sydney anymore. We've actually got some really close friends that live in Melbourne. Anyone use the Chaotica eyeball microphone isolation? I gave one away at the road rally about 5 years. It's the round thing, right? It's like this big and a microphone goes inside of it. Also, Adriana Lisette, one of our members, I believe, has one of those. Anyway, I gave one away to somebody. It was like a prize or something at the road rally, and whoever it was actually called me or emailed me a few months later and said that thing sounded really good. What is it? Delta tree in recording? I believe that it's a microphone setup where it's like a tree of microphones set up mostly for recording guitar amps, I believe. Wow, our singer from The Voices beat up the engineer while tracking at A&M, shut down. Whoa, I gotta read that. Shut down U2's day of tracking Joshua Tree. Nice. I only had one person ever threaten to pummel me while I was engineering. It was a roadie, as a matter of fact, that I just kicked out of the room. Roadies drink all the time. That was my personal experience and observation. Is as soon as the roadies are done unloading the trucks, getting the gear set up out in the studio, and they feel like they're done, they're good, they will sit down and start drinking. And all they do is drink, hang out in the control room, talk about what they're going to eat for dinner. It's like, dudes, go out in the lounge and do it. Go out in the lobby and do it. Go out in the parking lot and do it. I am here to work. A Decatree. That's the microphone array. I thought Delta Tree. That sounds a little odd. Yeah, Decatree, which I believe is a hand-me-down from the old Decca studios. Robert Vellacourse. I have a signed book from Ralph Murphy. It's circa 2017 Road Rally. George Gillen wants to know if I ever worked Gamble and Huff, Tom Bell. I didn't, but I used to be good friends with the guy who owned the studio where they did all that stuff. Now I can't even remember the Sigma Sound in Philly. I can't remember his name. I can see his face, but I was part of an organization called SPARS, the Society of Professional Audio Recording Studios. And my studio, you had to be invited by other fancy big name studios to join. And it was expensive. It was like $2,000 a year. We were the 11th studio that was invited to join. This is when I had tried recording in Fort Lauderdale. I want to say his name was Joe. And I remember he had a nice little beard or a goatee. Anyway, I did get to go to the studio one time when I was in Philly, and they did play me some of the Gamble and Huff stuff that was done a long time ago in the control room. I gotta say, it was great. I didn't use the Trident A range at Cherokee, but I did use the Trident A range in a studio I can't remember the name of in New York one time. Sounded great. The one I used, though, had a wooden armrest instead of the traditional leather padded armrest. And I do remember several times, I only worked in that room for like 3 days on something, and every time I'd turn around I would whack my elbow on that wood thing, and I thought, who would put wood instead of a padded leather armrest? Joe Tarsia, thank you. Yes, Joe was an awesome guy. We were all pretty close. The owners of the studios that were part of SPARS, the organization was only like a year old back then. And we were fighting, trying to keep it alive, because it was expensive. We had to hire, lawyers and somebody to run the organization, all that stuff. It's not like you just form a little club and just it's on paper, But yeah, we had like Chris Stone from the Record Plant, L.A. Can't remember who else. Matt Gemmerman from Criteria, my old boss. Joe Tarsia. Kent Duncan from Kendon Recorders in Hollywood. I mean, these guys were the godfathers. They were like the guys that wrote the American Constitution. These guys, they were the guys that built the recording industry in America. I was really flattered that we got invited to join that organization. Howard Schwartz from Howard Schwartz Recording in New York, which was by far the preeminent audio post place at the time. He eventually became my boss. And And shortly after I started managing the facility, he called one day and said, "I'm not coming to work." I said, "Why is that?" He goes, "Because I'm in Paris. I met a girl last night on the Staten Island ferry. We fell in love. We took my American Express card, went right to the airport, got on a plane, went to Paris, rented a Porsche, and bought clothes. See you when I get back." And he didn't come back, I want to say like 2 years. I think I built 2 new studios while he was out of the country. It was great. I got to run a world-class facility. I was like 32 years old or something. Absolutely. High-end engineers use $100 mic. I mean, there are some beautiful microphones out there that are like $3,000 to $10,000. Yes, but there are some great. I'm telling you, I've done stuff with like a 57. I've had vocalists sing a lead vocal on a record using a handheld 57, not even a 58, and it was great because the performance was there. Um, what's my favorite classic desk? SSLs for ease of use, and they do sound good, but classic Neves, you know, it's like, do you like blondes or brunettes? Do you like tall or short? It's a matter of taste, but you can't go wrong with an SSL. I haven't used any of the newer SSL stuff. I'm sure it's great. But I used a lot of SSLs. Probably the last 5 or more years I was still doing it. I used mostly SSLs, but I have done a fair amount of stuff on classic Neves. Yeah, track on a Neve, mix on an SSL. You cannot go and record everything to tape on a Studer and then bounce it to Pro Tools. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I'm telling you, one of my favorite mics of all time was the Sony ECM50 lavalier mic. I used on high-end on piano. I've used on acoustic guitar. I've stuffed it with foam into the F-hole of cellos. What else? Used on hi-hats. It works incredibly well on the high end of a grand piano. Robert Lang Studios has an SSL duality. Yeah, I'm familiar with it. I've looked at pictures of it. I've seen a YouTube video about a duality. I've never used one. The model was Sony ECM50. Shirelli and I were actually looking at him one night online together. I've been recommending it for so many years. He goes, "That settles it. I'm ordering one." So he found a used one on eBay. But frankly, I bought like a $14 lavalier mic, that used a AAA battery, or maybe even one of those little nickel-sized batteries. I bought it at Radio Shack once and used that thing, and it sounded great. AKG 414, very great microphone. Love those. I was actually, if I can pat myself on the back, I was one of the guys that started using those a lot way before my contemporaries. As a matter of fact, there was a singer whose name escapes me right now. She became kind of famous. For a while, she was the female vocalist on Saturday Night Live or on The Tonight Show or one of those bands. Can't remember why. I can't remember her name, but I think I was just engineering her record, and she walked into my studio and she saw the 414 on the big boom, and she goes, "I'm not using that." And I said, "Well, why are you saying that? You haven't even tried it yet." She goes, "I only use 87s." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what. How about if you engineer the record and I'll go sing your vocals?" And she walked out and called her manager, and the manager came over to the studio and we had a little talk together. And I said, "Just tell her to use it for an hour. If she doesn't like the way it sounds, I won't force her to use it, but I think it's going to sound great on her." She was actually kind of throaty sounding, She wasn't like a high-pitched, really girly singer. And it sounded amazing on her. As a matter of fact, what I did was I set up an 87 and the 414 like this, so got a good comparison. And she never used anything but a 414 after that. So there you go. I think, remember when Shirelli still made the gauge microphones? I could be wrong about this. I can't remember 100% if it was Madonna, but so I think that's how he found out about it. Somebody, might have been Madonna, walked in the room and actually had a Chinese microphone that had no branding on it whatsoever. And whoever that artist was would only use that microphone. And Rob was so blown away with it. He said, "What is that?" She goes, "Oh, a friend of mine who's an engineer got it as a sample from a company that builds them in China." So Rob tracked down the company and had them change a few components on it, cut a deal with them where every microphone that got shipped to him in the U.S. as a gauge microphone that they ear checked. And if they didn't like the way it sounded, the company would take it back. Of course, they paid like twice as much for the microphones, but they sounded great. I've got a gauge sitting in my closet upstairs. Got a couple of them. Yeah, I've heard really good stuff about the Warm audio gear. Also, AKG has, it's called a 212 or something like that. It's like it's the same capsule as a 414, but with, it may not have a roll off or it doesn't have the variable pattern on it. And I know people that have used them and say they sound great. So if I were going to record a drum set today, I typically used 414s on the tom-toms. If that's the drum, I would use a 414 like that, with the capsule just barely hanging over the edge. Can you guys see it? Yeah, the capsule hanging. Oh well, you get the idea. Hanging over the edge like that. I've had a couple of them get whacked, and that there's no fix them. When a drummer hits one of those babies, lights out on the old 414. But I always thought they sounded great, and if I remember correctly, I would pat them 10 and roll them off. And they sounded great. So now that I know that they've got, there we go, the AKG 214, it is amazing for the money. It's like a couple $100 or something, right? $200 or $300. So those I would put on tom-toms in a minute. I've used 414s on snares, but the first time I did it, I got one blown up. I mean, the guy hit it square on, just pulverized it. And back in my day, if you did that, if you made that choice and the microphone got blown up, you paid for it. So, yeah, cost of doing business pour moi. Anyway, if I were going to record a drum kit today, I would try the 214s on the tom-toms, knowing that they're cheap and disposable, kind of. Michael, with all the songs you've heard or recorded, what song moved you the most? Come on, this was on Taxi Trivia. Steely Dan, Asia. I think it's the best written, best played, best performed. And the players were all great. The performance of all them together was amazing. Best engineered, best produced, best mix. I think it's the Mona Lisa of music. There you go. Poppy Paul still has the gauge mic. Yay. John Pearson says, I'd use Logic Drummer. I love getting drum sounds, and at the risk of sounding really snobby about it, I'm really good at it, and I'm really fast at it. It used to amaze me that all my peers, I didn't understand that it was all smoke and mirrors. They were doing it for money because they would charge an hourly rate. I had friends in the industry, other engineers whose work that I admired, that would spend, a day or two getting the drums to sound right for a particular song. Literally send everybody home except for the drum tech and the drummer and spend a day or two. It's like throwing plywood on the floor, moving the drums to a different part of the room, trying different room mics, trying different drums on everything, trying different heads, everything they could do. It was like lawyers charging their hourly rate. It's like, really? I mean, come on. If you can't get a great drum sound inside of 2 hours, but they could, they just chose not to. How many mics do I put on a drum kit? Kick drum gets a 421. This is just where I start, probably where I'll land. Kick drum gets a 421. Snare drum gets a 57 on the top. Rarely did I use anything on the bottom, but if I used something on the bottom, it was probably the Sony ECM 50, just because they had a really nice top end on it. And let's see, high tom 414 padded 10 rolled off, mid tom 414 padded 10 rolled off, floor tom occasionally, probably like 30 to 50% of the time. The only microphone the only thing I could ever get a great sound on with a Sennheiser 441 was a floor tom. And I just, for some reason, 414s on the floor tom tended to pick up a lot of crash cymbal in that position, and the 441 had a tighter pattern, but still, if you just EQ'd the hell out of it, could make it sound like the 414s did. Because that's the other thing, is you want all three toms to sound like they're from the same kit, and so you don't want, one mic'd or EQ'd dramatically different than the others. Yeah, I just, John says, when you've got it, you've got it. But I really, not to pat myself on the back, I think that it was that everybody else was probably just as good at it and as fast as I was at it. They were just smarter than I was, because they realized they could make hundreds of dollars for doing something that they could have made, like $100 for by dragging it out for a couple days. 47 on the kick. Yeah, I knew people that used 87s on kicks. Milking the cow, they did. Mark Real wants, because we gotta close shop here. It's after 5 o'clock. Mark wants me to repeat the schedule from the top of the show. All right, so I'm in the wrong month. Okay. Excuse me. The staff is moving back into the office on Monday, June 29th. So I'm not going to do a Taxi TV that day, because I think Ariana and I will probably have our hands full. Who knows? Maybe everybody walks in, turns on their computer, everything's fine. But better safe than sorry. So we're taking that Monday off. And then Friday, July 3rd is a no Taxi TV day, because that's the day that we're going to take off for the July 4th weekend. We will be back in the office Monday, July 6th, and on Monday, July 6th, we will be doing a Taxi TV with a music supervisor who also specializes in licensing vintage music. Saturday, July 11th, I'll be getting a haircut. And then Monday, July 13th, you'll get to see that haircut as I have Robin Frederick on the show with me. I've got some other guests lined up that I've been talking to today. That's it. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for not thinking I'm a geek for having my granddaughter do the intro today. That was kind of funny. And it seems, you know what I'm going to try and do on either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday? Do the haircut live on the show. My haircutter would actually do that. He's become a friend of mine over many years. Oh, never mind. I won't say it. I'm not going to say it. You're welcome for the show with Steve yesterday. He was great. And I love doing the Quarantinis, because I don't have to work that hard to put them together. And it's fun hanging out with you guys. I really feel like we've become a family over the last few months. I'm going to try and get Stephen Memel to join me on the phone. He and I have been texting a little bit. Stephen Memel is, I don't know who won Steve Barden's book yet. I think that tomorrow the email goes out for the replay, and then Ariana will see who's got the best comment. I know Robert Vellacourse had a really well thought out comment in there. I don't know if he needs a copy of the book. Anyway, Stephen Memel is an old friend of mine. He is a vocal coach, a performance coach. I think he does acting coaching. Years ago, we had a band named Mike and Ruthie, folkies from upstate New York, who basically stared at their shoes a lot. Their music was incredible. They're super nice people, but they really didn't have much of a vibe on stage. And Memel said, get me somebody that just doesn't have it together on stage. And I said, I've got the perfect people for you. So he took them on stage inside of 5 or 10 minutes, totally changed their performance thing. I mean, they went from being like, oh, the music's really good, to holy crap, these guys are dynamic and interesting, which is really hard to do with indie folk music. But he did that. So anyway, I've just got to see which day Memel can squeeze us in at 4 o'clock, but I will get him on the bed. Paul, good night. 1 a.m. off to bed. Thank you for staying up with us yesterday, I think. And that's it. See you folks mañana. Let's break out the band for a big finish. See you tomorrow for another exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woohoo! Bye, you guys.